another interesting story. Stephen Montgomery was a pastor turned entrepreneur. He's a painting entrepreneur, and I'm excited to hear his story as well. So, James, take it away.
Awesome. Steven, it's great to be with
What's
you.
up, man? How you doing? Good. Good to see you.
See you.
Yeah.
So you're pioneering the home services revolution.
That's what we're trying to do, yeah.
Talk to us about it real quick.
Yeah, so I dropped out of college, actually Bible college. After a year and a half, I got what I needed, which was a wife, ring by spring. If any of you have ever been to a Bible college, they had a joke that if you walked around the lake 3 times, you had to get married. And so you'd see couples like walk 2.5 times and like turn around. The conversation wasn't good enough. Anyway, sorry. I dropped out of college and decided I wanted to pursue business, and I ultimately started painting houses. I had just gotten married. It was like 3 weeks after our honeymoon, and I had $12 in my bank account but couldn't work for anybody else, and just decided to quit my job and started painting houses, and it grew from there. We grew that painting company. That one painted to being one of the larger painting companies here in Texas, and then we started franchising it, and then now we have turned that into a whole platform of home service brands.
I love it. Now, you started in the home services business by painting for your dad's company.
Yeah, so my dad briefly, when I was a freshman in high school, had a painting company, and I painted for him on the weekends and over the summer, and then he quit doing it and moved on. And then my mom was a realtor, so I started taking the equipment that he had, and I would paint for her clients as like for side gigs. And so I kind of learned how to paint a little bit towards the end of high school, and then a little bit while I was in college as well.
Yeah. So you got your start there, but you ultimately did what a lot of people are afraid to do, which is take that leap, to kind of leave that, a lot of people I think use college as like a safety net, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna be here for a couple years and then eventually I'll figure it out. But for somebody who may be in that position where they've realized, hey, this isn't the path that I want to go, they want to take that leap, what advice would you give to them, looking at the path that you took that enabled you to find success as fast as you did?
I started really young, which in some ways was an advantage because I didn't have a lot of responsibility on me other than my wife. And I remember that conversation with her. We literally had $12 in our bank account, but I had a side gig, exterior painting job that I thought was going to book for the weekend. And it was a $2,700 job. The guy was going to give me like a 50% deposit. And I've just always been a risk taker. Like my whole life, I'm not very fearful of stepping out and trying something. And so I was like, that'll be the seed money for this company. I'll be fine with what my wife makes at Starbucks. We will be able to cover rent. And so she literally was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I quit subcontracting and painting for this other company, so went out and did it myself. And that literally called my boss, quit, and he loved that, right? I gave him 1 day notice. And so that next day, that job that I thought I had, canceled. And so I had $12 in my bank account, nothing at all. And so my rule was I would knock on doors until somebody gave me a job for the next day. And I would only have to knock on doors for about 4 hours, and I would have a job the next day. And then it grew from there into a lot of referrals I would get. But the thing is, like, what I would say to anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship is pick something that you know and that you think you can even do somewhat well. Like, I was a below average painter. I was not a very good painter. And yeah, I still was able to build a business off of that because I had this confidence in myself and I knew that I could figure things out. And so people would ask me like, hey, can you fix the siding? And I'd be like, yep. And I would just watch YouTube videos that night. And so until I figured it out, and it just grew from there. And so RESI Brands now is 700 franchise units. But it started with a decade-long journey of me building one painting company in one city here in Austin, Texas, before we then franchised and had all that success. And because we've grown so fast as RESI Brands and Pinks and all of that has just grown rapidly, I can't stand it when people think it's like an overnight success, because I'm like, this was a 10-year foundation before we even franchised.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you, because you're crushing it in the franchise model. And if anybody consumes a decent amount of business content in today's world, there's a lot of light being shed on franchise businesses, because you're essentially getting the playbook from somebody else and you're just kind of coming up with your own effective marketing ways to grow and scale that business. Do you think somebody should start a business in today's world from scratch or franchise a company? What are your thoughts?
I think it's really depends on the person. Some people are going to want total autonomy control over the brand. They were going to want to do their own thing in their own way. Franchising is not for that person. We meet Brandon as well. We meet potential franchise candidates all the time, and we tell them, like, franchising is not for everyone. But if you want the proven playbook, you want to be part of a brand that's already established, you want to be in a community of entrepreneurs building the exact same business you are and learning from each other and growing, then franchising is a really great option where I always joke that we burned all the pancakes so you don't have to, right? Like, we've made all the mistakes. We've taken a decade or years of experience and put it all together into a playbook to where you can now execute on that. And we see franchisees do numbers that in their first year that took us, I think it was like year 7 before I was doing numbers like that. And that's the power of franchising, is you get to kind of fast track with a proven system and playbook.
Right, and we were talking to Hugh about how South by Southwest, they did a really good job of going after different verticals beyond just music into entertainment, into business, into tech. And you effectively did the same thing in your franchise model, where you guys aren't just doing painting, you guys are also working with them to do windows. How many verticals or different businesses would you say that you have that you're franchising right now?
Yeah, so we started with a painting company. That grew quickly. And then we also partnered with Pinks and have been able to scale them rapidly. And then we now have 3 other brands. So one in the garage remodeling space, one that is roofing, siding, and windows, and then another that's a handyman brand that just is about to launch. And so we have 5. Our goal is to long term, I'm thinking not just in the next few years, but in the next 10, 20, and 30 years, we want to build the largest trades organization in the world. We think we can do that. We think we can get to 20 or 30 brands with well over 1,000 franchisees. And so that's what we're working on, and we believe we can truly lead a blue-collar revolution.
Right. And Carl had mentioned that you were a pastor at one point in time. You're a faith-based entrepreneur. How has faith shaped your approach to business?
I think, so I planted a church when I was 25, and we actually met in a comedy club, Cap City Comedy Club, for a while, and then before that we met in an improv club. But I did that all while running my painting company. And business for me, I had a team. I would work 20, 30 hours, and then I would work another 20, 30 hours a week in the church. I also did a lot of youth ministry. And it was a lot of fun, and I did that for about 3 years, and then I really felt God calling me to focus more on business. And so I made a shift, and that's when my business started to rapidly grow in 2018. And so I tell people that all the time, because I've also done a lot of mission trips, and I remember being stranded in the middle of Kenya at one point, and we didn't know how we were going to get out. There was no ride. It was this dramatic scenario. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, that took less faith than being an entrepreneur. like at that moment, I remember being like, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way out of here. And there's moments as an entrepreneur where you're going to be laying there at 2 o'clock in the morning, not sure how you're going to make payroll. And it takes more faith sometimes to do that, to trust God, to keep going when you want to quit. And so I think that whatever we do, God is going to call us into great things, but he also is going to call us to do hard things. And that's just the journey of entrepreneurship. And I think knowing God, trusting Jesus is a huge blessing, because I don't know how you would do it without it. I don't know how people go through hard things without faith. It's hard for me to understand. And my parents were Christians, so I've been saved since I was 3. But I don't know what it would be like to not have God to rely on, to, as I'm putting my head on the pillow, kind of give all things back to him and trust him with everything that I have. And that brings me just this huge sense of peace no matter what's going on.
Well, you got amazing advice. Thank you so much for being with us today, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mark?